Here. All righty then. There we go. All right, so hope everyone's ready for the evening here. My name is Cherie of the 10K Project. Want to say hello to everyone and welcome. I have Tawana here, who is my co-founder. We are officially the largest community of small dollar investors who actively fund Black-owned businesses. And you can invest in a Black-owned business for as little as $100 per investment. And you can do that in exchange for shares or equity or partial ownership in that business. And the whole idea is when we come together and we start funding our own businesses, we can profit from our own innovation, we can create jobs in the community, and we can work together to build Black wealth. So I definitely want to say hello to everyone today. And also want to say that not only, well, first of all, first announcement is tonight in 2 hours at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Anyone who is a non-member is able to come and look behind the curtain at our Bet on Black pitch. So we are opening up the Bet on Black pitch to the entire community that we have, not just members. And Tawana, you have any announcements with regards to that?
No, just come and join us. It's going to be a very interesting evening. Another amazing co-founder coming to present his amazing idea, life-changing idea. And we'd love to have as many of you join us as possible.
Perfect. And then the person that we have here this evening, because we always talk about other wealth building opportunities as well, is all around business credit. And when you're thinking about building your business credit, you can do it for a few different reasons. Number one is for your business itself, in order to start your business and grow your business. The second reason you may want to look at building business credit is for real estate investments. That's an opportunity as well. There are people who use business credit in order to purchase tax liens and buy businesses, et cetera. So Brandon is here today to talk with us about how to build business credit. Hello, Brandon, and welcome.
Welcome, Brandon.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you. So you were referred to us actually by Anita Calloway, who is one of our 10K Project members. She contacted me and said, "Oh, I've got the perfect business credit person." And I'm like, "Perfect," and you and I spoke before, and you have a background in real estate.
Yes.
And you also have a background in helping people build business credit. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about your wealth building journey and where you are now and how you actually became a specialist in both of these things?
Okay. I won't give you the long version, but I'll give you a short version because it's very lengthy. I started out at 18. I got licensed as an appraiser. I was actually let me rewind that. I had to make a decision between pro baseball and doing therapy on my knee or helping my mom with real estate. So my entire life, I've been the finance person, the numbers person in my family, like money, So in high school, I had a business where I did all the printing, where I basically sold 20 cards in a sandwich bag for $1. So basically, long before Vistaprint, I feel like I was kind of, they weren't doing raised lettering at that time. I was doing raised lettering in different designs. So if people wanted their page number or beeper number on there, I put that on there. They did hair, I put it, whatever hair design. They wanted a car, comes with Mercedes, I put a Mercedes on there with their page number, cell phone. So lo and behold, when I graduated, I bought a Ford unit. in Chicago. I bought it for $12,900. Sold it for $35,000 in the first month. So basically, I used the money wrong because I was young, didn't know what I was doing. So I got ahead of myself, but I saw that how quickly you can make the money in real estate. So basically, I went on to do other projects over the course of the years. But I got licensed as an appraiser at 18, and I also got licensed for at the time loan officers weren't getting licensed in Illinois. That wasn't until 2004. So I started doing mortgages. So I began to see a lot of investors make a lot of money. Many of them weren't proven income, so that became my niche. So I lived in a world where people who couldn't verify income, I helped them to acquire financing for real estate. So back in those days, I mean, the rates were a little bit higher, but they had the no income, no asset, no job loans, which was called the NINJA. Or they had a no-doc, a true no-doc. True no-docs required higher credit scores, more of a strengthened credit profile to be able to get away with putting 5 or 10 or 20% down, but they wouldn't ask you for any job information, just your credit history could sustain it because you had a proven track record. So I stuck with it over the years, and it began to be very lucrative for me, and basically I met a real estate agent back in 2001 named Annette Harris. She allows me to tell her, story more or less. But her and her husband, they owned about 50 properties, and I refinanced quite a few of them, never proving income. But she would send me clients who wanted to become investors, who had good credit, who had 20% down. So I kind of lived in that world for a long time. And in that mix, I met restaurant owners, I met beauty supply owners, I met construction workers. So when the market took its turn, in 2007, 2008, I was already prepared for it because I had already established bonds with banks outside of traditional lending. So I began to look into business credit and business lending, what the requirements were for that. And it's been up and down over the course of years, depending on how the market is, So when there are more defaults, the banks get more stringent on guidelines. But they always come back lax after a year or two has surpassed because they want to be able to afford their big investors or their big clients the opportunity to borrow more money. So they have to open it up to all parties. Otherwise, they'd be up against different biases, and fair housing and different lending products will kick in. So for me, I don't use the traditional way of building business credit. I use your personal credit as a personal guarantor. Although we can do that if your credit is not good, it's a little bit lengthier process. But most of my clients that I deal with have pretty strong credit, so I've been able to fast track them into getting where they want to be. Because most people that borrow money that want business credit, they want cash. They don't want to buy from a store, which is what I call buy here, pay here credit, because you can only get what they have on their product catalog. So if you have good credit, we can get you some credit cards at $5,000, $10,000, $25,000, depending on your credit strength. Even if they give you $1,000, it's still a start. But, basically what I learned in doing personal finance is much like business finance. No one wants to be the person to give you big money. So you have to create a track record. So getting $1,000 credit card or $10,000 credit card, in 2 or 3 places, I've kind of mastered who does what in terms of pulling inquiries. So I don't want to put a bunch of hits on people's credit because, too many inquiries make you a credit risk. Because what most people don't understand is that when you borrow money from a bank, it's not just the inquiries that you have. It's new credit accounts, it's inquiries, it's banking relationship, how much money you have in the bank. So there are different things that go into making you a fundable individual or small business. But again, too many inquiries make you a credit risk because what happens is that banks have what's called an internal score or an empirical score. So sometimes you get turned down because your internal score is low. Which could be, you have a new relationship. You don't have enough credit history, too many new accounts on your credit. Usage is too high. Some banks operate on what they call the 524 rule, which means that you can't have more than 5 accounts in the last 2 years. Doesn't matter, personal or business. If they show on your personal credit report, they can see it, or that bank can find it, you'll get declined even with an 800 credit score. So I package people up, specifically based on their credit profile to make them fundable. So what I usually do is to make them a stronger candidate. I use real estate as a tool to be able to give them 30 years versus 5 years, because a typical loan that you get personal or business is only going to be 5 years. There's some SBA projects that are going to go a little bit longer, but that process is a lot more stringent. The requirements are very detailed. They're looking for a certain kind of person or a certain kind of property, a certain kind of amount of money that can be seasoned. So in getting you business credit cards at $5,000 or $10,000 or 20, whatever that number may be, the cards that we get help you, they report. So a lot of business credit vendors now don't report to your credit anymore unless it's a negative. So a lot of your high-end credit cards that people go for, people don't understand that they're not going to get any kind of credibility for that until they have a negative mark. So I deal with community-based banks who operate in a community-based world or low to moderate income situation, even for the businesses. So you can start out with like a U.S. bank or a PNC. I mean, you see the Chase cards, Chase Inc. cards, and the Capital One cards, but I try to go for the ones that won't report on your personal credit. So that way the usage won't impact you, in two ways, because if you have a high usage on the Capital One credit card for small business, your credit's going to feel that. Whereas if you have it with a Chase Inc., you won't, because it won't show. So different things I look at when I categorize or I get people, situated for funding. So if your credit's a little bit weaker, then we got to go with that Capital One. Not the Capital One's a bad card. It's not. It's a good starter card, and you'll see that, or the Wells Fargo secured. If you got a few dollars to put aside, then that can still build credit too. But those other credit cards that come, they come as a result of you having a good credit history, and allow you to be able to the bank to want to lend to you. So if you get 10,000 on a credit card, that's a pretty good credit card, a pretty good extension of credit, especially for a new business with no credibility, no track record. Even though you personally guaranteed it, it still reports to the business credit as you use it. So I tell people, order some paper online, order, get some gas, let it cycle for 1 month just to get it out there to say that you had some usage. Most of them have cash back, cash rewards. Some of them have, points, but what have you. But basically, you can leverage those tools too, because the things that you do in your personal life, if you make yourself an employee of your company, you can kind of hide behind a corporation and still build all kinds of credit. For example, if you don't own where you live, this is what I teach a lot of my clients that come through my courses. If you don't own where you live, if you're renting, and you can't buy anytime, in the near future, or at least not for the next 6 months to a year, and you plan on staying there, talk to that landlord, have them transfer that lease over to your company. And why would I do that? Because where you live becomes corporate housing. So now you can write off where you live. Then turn your utilities into your corporate name, your cell phone into your corporate name, your cable into your corporate name. So that where you live. So now you can make, just instead of a percentage of where you live, you can make that entire proximity a business, because you now occupy that as corporate housing, and you can draft the contract between yourself and your company. It's all contractual. So just put it in place to do things. But that if you can self-report some of those things, not everything will allow you to self-report, but some things you can self-report to build credibility through DMV. Now that's not necessarily the greatest product, but it's a product that can be used for certain things. That over the years they've scaled back on what you can report. But so I look at different tools, and I try to find out what a person is trying to do. But basically, how I create wealth for people is and build strong business credit is I show them how they can flip properties, not to get off kilt, but I'm just saying that's how I do it. So they can buy pieces of property, they can renovate that property, they can resell that property, or they can buy, renovate, and refinance that property, and they can generate large sums of cash. And those businesses, those properties they buy can be in the name of the corporation. So they can create some kind of track. And some of those lenders are actually they're backed by real lenders, not just a private institution. So they can give you a history to report. So I use those different things, but it also gives people a chance to instead of having to pay 5-year payments, 30-year payments. So that payment is much more feasible, it's much more manageable. They can put someone in that property to be able to pay for the mortgage. It's in the company name, so it's corporate debt. They can see monthly profits, from that particular piece of property, and they could probably walk away with $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 above what they put into the property, tax-free in a refinance situation, because they can only tax you on what's profit. So if you refinance a property, that's not profit. That's a loan that you took out. So you're able to pay back what you borrowed, and put that back if you want to, or reinvest into another project, and then get project number 2 in the company name and do the same thing all over again. Before you know, you have a performing business. So now what happens is that when you go to a bank a year from now, or 2 years from now, you can say that my business made X amount of dollars because it's generating $1,000 a month rent times 3 or 4 properties. So now you become a profitable business. So if you got 3 properties, generating you $1,000 a month, you got $3,000 a month coming in. So, and then also, you have money in that account, and when you file your taxes, they can see that. So it may not be an extreme amount of money, but it lets them know that your business is a performing business and it has assets. And then you also have credit that's established with those credit cards. So now you become an attractive individual via your business to be able to borrow money, because you're not suffering for the money. They don't want to give people who appear to need the money. But if you don't need it, they want to give you all the money in the world if everything lines up. So I structure my things that way. Now, if your credit's bad, then we got to go to slow walk process. We got to the tiers, the Quills, the Ulines, the Grangers, the HG Auto Supply, making sure everything is separate. And you should do that even if your credit's good. You live here, your home is here, or you can get a virtual address, that's commercial. I mean, not that home-based businesses aren't profitable, but they take you more serious when you have a commercial address and those two are separated. So when you buy a house, you live here and you work here. They look for you to think the same things as such. So you can build that way for $50, $100. So I actually just set up my own commercial mail receiver agency, so I can become a person's business address if they need to, and collect their mail and forward the mail to them. I found it to be a good outlet. People don't have an office, they can come in here and they sit down and close the door. If I need to put a flat in the door, then they can say that, hey, this is my office, and for the day, for 8 hours, a weekly discount. So just different things to put people in position to line them up, to get their mindset focused on, okay, I need to be working towards only where I operate out of. That's why I take real estate so seriously, because even if you buy a residential house or building, what have you, if you buy a 2-flat, you can actually put a bay window there, put a sign in, and get it zoned for businesses in some communities, if the alderman will allow it, so to speak. And that could become a commercial address, though it's just a 2-flat, so different things that people aren't tapping into. I kind of think outside the box, so I mean, I don't want to lose you, but I go in a lot of different directions in how I build people based on their drive. So if someone is not very hands-on, then I can give them a kind of more of a hands-off approach. If they're very hands-on and they want to learn it, which I strongly implore, because it's good to know how to do these things for yourself. Because what if I decide that I don't want to do this anymore? You need to know how to put the business credit together for you and be able to do it and transfer it to other businesses. So but my starting point typically with anybody is always making sure that their corporation's up, is active and in good standing. If they got any trademarks that they need to have in place, put those trademark things in place. Establish bank relationships. If you've got some money, having 10 grand available to put into a bank account gives you the best rating. Making sure that you don't go negative on your accounts, because these days, if you go negative, banks will punish you. Some of them won't give you lending for a year. Some of them won't give you lending for 5 years because you went negative for $5. So it's important that you keep your track record clean. Making sure that you keep your articles, when it's time to renew, make sure you keep everything up to code, having a good accountant, having a merchant account if need be, making sure that you just separate everything from your personal. It's still good to get all the tiers in place, even if you can fast track it with good credit, because you want to be able to at some point create that track to say, okay, well, you know what, I've got all these payment experiences, these payment references in place. Plus I have larger credit from a major bank that extended me credit, and I've had that for 6 months, 9 months, a year, because you want to become attracted to them, even if you haven't made a lot of money. But your credit history makes you attractive. The more it's tenured, makes you more attractive. The less of where you're personally guaranteeing things, the less inquiries, the lower the usage, because they're looking at you, in that regard, then you become more attractive. So we look at a host of variables to see what people are and how we can build them. So I mean,
okay, so we have a couple of questions here too, but okay, so I just want to make sure. Well, I guess I want to start off with a big question. When you talk about goals, because I think that that's very important for people to start off with, like why are you building business credit? What is your ultimate goal? Can you give us some examples that other people have with regards to goals for their business credit and I guess ultimately their business? What are people doing?
So the bulk of my clients have given 30, 40 years to the job. They want to retire. They have grandchildren, children, they want to create legacy, which I love that space, because my slogan is refer 3 a day, make 100K. And you can do less than that. You can refer 3 people a month and make that. But what I strongly tell people to do is take those funds and put it into the business and begin to, create business revenue and hide behind it whatever you can until you can build up what you need to build up. But typically, retirement's the goal. The job, there's no job security. I tell people it's really no job security in anything, because if they have a down quarter, something happens, they have a falling out between ownership, it could affect you, so but in most cases, people want to spend more time with their family. They want to retire. It's kind of the commonality that I get. They're tired of building organizations and getting a plaque after 5 or 10 years, or a dollar raise after 5 or 10 years. Still struggling, making, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul just to make ends meet. When you go on vacation, they got to miss. It's like a life decision for some people, because when you come back, the bills still exist. So I've always used my products as a byproduct to be able to help them to create other income, so that way they can offset things and create other revenue, not to push my program, but more or less to get them more capital in their hands so that they can begin to say, okay, well, I can do A, B, and C, but I always want to know what their goals are. So I do things like, from a financial planner standpoint, I have what's called a financial needs analysis. I have them fill that out. It's very detailed. I get to see who you really are, credit wise. I can pretty much tell who has good credit, who's got assets, who's got this going on from that analysis. Now, it's not always true, tried and true, but more or less in most cases than not, I can pretty much get a good idea where a person is. And then I asked them, what do you see yourself in 5 years? If you start a business today, what does freedom feel like to you? And some people, believe it or not, an extra $1,000 a month is freedom for them, because so I don't minimize or what a person what makes them feel free. I just want to know what it is. But then we got to begin to work on realistic goals. Do you have a mortgage? Do you, do you have a car you want to pay off? Our student loans are bearing you down. How's your credit? So we want to make a person as credible as possible on every aspect, not just the business side, but on the personal side too. So that if they need to leverage some things in the interim or at some point in time, that they can do those things. But I always want to know what your goals are, and what's the time frame, So I become like an accountability partner for people, and I put a clock on them, so I need to know 90 days. This is what you think you can be. Okay, I'm gonna check back with you in 91 days to see where you are. But I'm gonna check on you in between time too, texting you every 2 weeks. Hey, how's it going? Where are we in the process? Kind of getting a progress report. So, a lot of times people are used to being told what to do versus, kind of doing it on their own, because the job gives them a task, or this is what your job is. This is what you do for this wage or this salary would have. Where, okay, so now we gotta change. We gotta shift your thought process to now you're the owner, and teach you different responsibilities, and people can still be responsible at work, but a lot of times they don't give themselves half a chance, in regards to their business taking off. My mom creates things for all kinds of people, but when it comes to her, she kind of dumbs it down. And I had to come behind her and be like a push partner. Hey, mom, you can do that too. The things that you're helping them to achieve, you can do the same thing, So what are your goals? Write your visions down. Get you a vision board. You got to keep it in front of you. So I'm one of the people that you got to see it in the morning. Give yourself 15 to 20 minutes to listen to something that's going to motivate you, get your spirit right. Because when you walk out that door, life is going to happen. Like, to all of us, no matter how much money you got, or how good of a lifestyle you live, it's waiting on you. I'm saying? Somebody had a situation that goes on and it can affect your psyche. So I let a lot of things come into play when it comes to how I build people, but knowing what their goal is important to me. If it's retirement, if it's to make $100,000 a year, for the rest of their life, if it's to create something for their family, that the whole family can do, that can create legacy. So me personally, I push people into, I advise they put money into different places like annuities and SEPs, where they can park money and live on compound interest, and they can have that money allocated to the family for the rest of their days. And you can't shut it off, because there's ways that you put things together contractually to keep money in the family. And that's how wealthy families build. They use insurance products, they use different stocks and bonds, but ultimately the insurance company can't fail or the world will fail. So if you can dump a bunch of money, here, or even as a collective, and make it, if you got to go as far as saying, hey, we need all these signatures so nobody can run off with money, then you can do that, but prepare yourself to be able to put up something to where it can cover the family, and you can still make the machine come from business. So owning real estate or owning small businesses that generate capital. Okay, 20% of that money that we have as profits is gonna go over here, and we're gonna let that sit. We're gonna let it compound every 5 to 8 years of a double through through compound interest, or we get it or this rate of return. But they become performing assets. But they're still also assets that they can use. If they need to leverage to get other things for the business. So I know I kind of go all over the place with it, but it's a million directions that people. I do that intentionally, because a lot of times people don't know that these things even exist. These options really exist. So like a lot of the properties that I've purchased, like I've purchased 3 and 4 unit properties for $10,000. I sit on 2 acres, with a 4-car garage or a 5-car garage, that was once sold for $800,000. That's one of the businesses I bought, less than a year ago. But it's a beautiful property. It's historic, and taking that same property as a business incubator system, I can make $12,000 a day if it's fully occupied. But it cost me $90,000 to put it into it. But that can become a business income, so that I can leverage that. So that's why I use it as a backing tool, as a sustainable tool in case life happens and you get caught up. Okay, we take this property, that has equity, and we can pay off those personal loans or those business loans to give you something that's a more feasible, more manageable payment, but it's still business income. It's still a business owned property. So they ask if you have any real property that you own, you can leverage that. And you can still be building those tiers in the process. You don't have to go spend a bunch of money, but just keep the credibility, good, so pay it on time, 7 days ahead of schedule, a few weeks ahead of schedule, because business credit is a little different than personal credit. They're doing what I call day by day payments, so they can tell if you were a day late or if you were a day early, and it's a little more tricky than I consider personal credit to be, because basically the personal credit, you got 30 days to be late, and no one will know. But in the business world, if you're a day late, 2 days late, it's gonna have an impact on you every single time. But if you're paying early, they can see that, So I just advise people to get as much as they can, wherever they can, without, having their credit run too much with regards to the business. But goals are definitely the first thing that we want to visit. We want to see what the plan is, because a lot of times people don't have a plan. So we got to create one, and we got to create one that's realistic for you, that you'll actually adhere to, that you'll actually stick to. Because a lot of times people say, oh, I want to be a millionaire, but they don't know what goes into being a millionaire and the work that comes behind, it. So, that's going to mean some sleepless nights. It's going to mean you can't hang out sometimes. It's going to mean you have to miss some trips, but it definitely works out in the end, So business credit is something that I leveraged, that I was late to learn about, I guess you could say. I was probably maybe 13 or 14 years into the finance world before I even heard about business credit, so I was a late bloomer in my estimation. But once I learned about it and I began to see how I could use it to my advantage, I use it to my advantage, because right now a lot of vendors like Quill, where they used to give you more payment experiences, they may only give you one, so and that's for good reason in my estimation, my opinion. I can't prove it, but that's how you keep the big guys, and the little guys, because some people can't afford to keep that payment up, $30 a month, $50 a month, for a consistent 3 months or 6 months on 4 or 5 accounts, so that can affect your bottom line budget. So having good credit is definitely an imperative situation. And if your credit's not good, you got a partner or a relative that has good credit. They can be a partner for the sole purposes of building your credit faster. They don't necessarily go into borrowing a bunch of money from that, but for the business, and you can still do all the tiers, So if you have a business that you want to build out, that's a good way to get it done faster and at low interest. So you can buy, if you want to buy a piece of property, or if you want to rent a piece of property. Like I have a lot of people that are getting into, the restaurant business right now, or the salon suites. So maybe you don't want to own, maybe you just want to rent. That's fine too. Well, if you can get the credibility from your business credit card, and most of those high-end rent landlords, they're going to send you an invoice. You can pay with a credit card or an ACH debit, have you. So that business credit card's at 0%, usually for the first 9 to 21 months. So that payment is relatively low. So you borrow 10 grand from that card, you're probably looking at under $100, for the duration of that 9 to 21 months. So now you got a chance to get in there, do what you got to do, make the business perform. That's per 10,000, give or take, but basically you got a chance to get in there, no heavy lifting. You got your next 6, 8, 9 months rent paid up. So now you got breathing room to go in and operate, market, get on Instagram, get on Facebook, Twitter, whatever you want to do, and now operate that business. But that credit card that you're paying on monthly is building your business credit. And then in the process, you still want to get all your suppliers and any other business places that are going to help you support your business to create credibility there too. But ask the question: are they net 30? Are they net 60? Are they net 15? Are they net 90? You want to know who's doing what. You want to make sure that you're going to get credit for what you're spending, who you're spending money with. It's good to borrow from them, but if it's not going to help you in any capacity for your business, then I would fish around first if it were me. But if they're going to give you the best number and it's more profitable, then you got to go with it. But if it's a quality product, but ultimately, those are some of the approaches that I use.
So Brandon, such good information. Thank you so much. Alicia has a question here. She says, I've been doing a lot of research around building business credit without using a personal guarantee.
Yes.
D&B has a credit builder program, which only focuses on building your file with them and not Experian or Equifax.
Right.
What is the process to self-report with these different agencies to make the process more cost effective?
Honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm a very honest person. I don't know, because and I'm not want to tell you a story because they changed guidelines. Like D&B's product has been around for a long time, and I tell people that it's a sales tool because I used to do it a lot back in the day. It used to be $400, and then they'll tell you $1,600. Then they say, oh, we can bring down to $800. Those agents are getting paid. So it's much like the credit bureaus. They're not a government-owned entity; they're a pay reporting agency. So they can do what they want to do in that regard, if you ask me. But I just tell people, there are different ways that we can build. Once your score is where it needs to be, or if you can get it there through secured mechanisms or unsecured. Once you have reached the right, pay desk score, Intellis score, DMB profile, that kind of deal, or right score, Equifax business, I usually tell people to try a fleet card. Start with those. I mean, granted, it's a gas card. You're gonna get gas for your car anyway, or wherever you got to travel to. So start building with things that you need, that are necessary for your business. So I found that to be an easier approach than trying to have them charge you $50, $200, consistently, and it still gets you nowhere. People have gone through NAV, so people have good results. So I mean, I've heard bad results. So I guess it's going to vary in each situation. But to self-report, I've only known one bureau to do that, and that's DMB. And that price fluctuates depending on the salesman you get, depending on how easily pressured you are to paying whatever that number is they're talking about.
All right, good, thank you. And Keithy says my phone cut out. What did he say about the business address, especially if you're a home business?
So
to that.
But what I recommend is getting a virtual office, just somewhere separate from where you live, because that to a bank is more credible, it's more respectable, and they're going to search Zillow, they're going to search different sites to see what that address looks like. Maybe not right away, and some of the systems do it for them. So, they can tell right away if it's a residential or commercial address. But sometimes you got some banks that, believe it or not, are actually going to want to do a site visit. Now, it's very seldom that it happens, but they do. There are some bankers that when you develop a relationship with them, they want to come see where you are. Is that a real business? And I say, and you got to be prepared for that. So, but a virtual office, usually bypasses that, because the commercial building has probably got 200 or 300 offices in there, 500 offices in there. You could be one of a million people that's using that same address, but they typically don't come out for those things if it's like a downtown address, or, they can tell it's a business district. But if you're in a smaller base situation, then some of those bankers are they don't believe you, and they'll come out. But in terms of getting funding, it's an easier avenue. Though you can get it doing home-based businesses all the time. I do a lot of those home-based businesses that get credit cards and get cash lending when they meet the requirements of banks. But due to COVID, COVID has changed many of those guidelines. They change frequently. There's some banks that are not only doing credit cards, there are some that are only doing lines of credit. There are some that won't touch a startup for 3 months until you have a 3-month relationship. And the reason why that is because, much like your personal right now, banks want to see who has staying power. They want to see how you cycle money. Are you going to go negative on this account? Or are you just open this account to borrow money from them? So I tell people, treat a bank like they're going to treat you, because they're going to make money on your money 8 to 12 ways every single day. On fees, on selling your money back to you for a student loan, a mortgage, car loan, a business credit card, whatever. They're going to make money on you, any and everybody, but use them for what they're worth too. So if you start up business or seasoned business, and you can afford to shift a few dollars for 30 days until to make your ledger balance look more attractive, then do that. Because once that ledger balance changes, and that's already into how they qualify you and giving you more money too. So banks have a lot of tricks of the trade that people will never know about, in terms of getting funding for their small business. But I play this game with them all day. And I tell people, don't just take my word for it. When you meet with a banker, even if I introduce you to them, make that bank qualify themselves to you, because, they're using your money, so, and they're making billions of dollars and trillions of dollars in some cases. So you just got to make them respect you, in that regard. But the credit piece is easy once you really got it going, and you maintain solid payment history, and you get to the 10-year point, you can really build, and you can build mass economics. Real estate is just one way that we can do it, to say, hey, you know what, my business has got $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 sitting in the account. I don't advocate leaving that much there, but if you got to do it, then you have to do it. But ultimately, you can say my business is generating this kind of revenue every month, and they see consistency, and you can leverage other tools. I don't advise those tools, for if your credit's not so good, but some of those places will give you lines of credit and loans based on cash flow, even with 500 credit scores. Now that's expensive money. But I tell people, if you're going to take that approach, make sure they report, and also make sure that that you have a system that's going to help you to get that money back to them right away. Because I've had situations where I've had some bigger brands and bigger food chains that borrow $200,000, and in 15 months they're paying back almost $300,000. So you got to make some of those things make sense. Whereas if you have a 0% credit card, or you got a few of those, and let's say you got 10 grand in a few places, you might only be paying a few $100s a month. So you got wiggle room to maybe perhaps purchase where you own. I buy a lot of condos. So a lot of the condos I buy, some of them are 10, 15,000, but I can make that a business. I can buy it in the business name and make it a business property. And I can operate there, and I can knock down walls. I can do what I want in the interior. They can't change that, So I'm not changing the actual building structure. I'm just creating my own business structure, and I own that, and it's in the company name. And then when they ask you for supporting proof that you own it in the company, you have a deed, you have a tax bill, you have utility bills, you have a variation of bills coming there. So it's actually a corporate space, So that gives people a chance sometimes to get their footing, before they can get to a commercial property. But that's also a tool that they can leverage. They need to borrow against that tool to put money down on the property or buy something else cash, depending on what kind of equity is there after it's seasoned. And if it's a private owned lender, you can do it in a shorter window. So I just use those different tools to kind of put people in a situation where they could, build business credit, but also not just from a bank standpoint, but with a private lender for real estate, but also, I had them also build personal relationships, because sometimes the bank may change the guideline and it's not what you need. Okay, well, but if you got a personal bond with them for 3 months or 6 months, I know I can make a phone call sometime in the day. You have 50 grand cash, and you can make the transition to the business you want, buy a piece of property, refinance that property at some point in time, pay that personal loan off. Now you got another business asset that you can leverage. So it always comes back to real estate for me, because that 15 year, that 30 years versus 5 years makes the payment more economical or more feasible. And then there are ways that you can make that property turn capital for you and give you profits. So people don't want new bills. So this is the way that I help them to fast track that and get out of the rat race to get the business going, up and going, so to speak, and be equitable and be able to leverage different things. But the true business credit, again, is just basically start a business, keep it in good standing, open a bank account, get as close to 10,000 as you can. This is for deposit. If you can put 10,000 there, even if you have to borrow it, from a situation, from like another person or whatever. I'm not advocating to get in debt, but if you have to borrow it or take it from a 401k or whatever, just let it sit to get the highest rating. Have a commercial address versus a residential. Don't go negative. Use money in and out, shuffle in and out, so you can show them activity, because banks look for activity. So there's a variation of things that you can use to really position yourself to get where you want to be. Now, if you got a business that's 2 years or older, there's a lot on the table for you. You surpassed the startup phase, but you're in a position where you can say, hey, my business has been tested by the water, it's battle tested, and we're still in existence, and we want to create a bond with you. If you haven't already done that with some banks, there are a lot of banks that we can create a relationship, within a 3 month or 6 month window, and some banks they don't require relationships at all. They'll just lend to you right away. Then you can leverage that to get cash lines of credit plus credit cards, which puts you in a situation where you can say, hey, I have a $75,000 line of credit or $75,000 loan for my business. Now, you may not have made any money, but our process for what we do, because the bulk of what I do is lending. I still build the credit, but the lending part is where I've mastered. It's kind of my expertise. So now you have a line of credit that's 25, 50, 75, 100 grand. That's a strong asset to be able to say that you've been able to borrow money. And it also looks really good on your track record when you're trying to get more business debt. Some of these businesses don't do a UCC1. Some businesses do what's called a UCC1 lien, and that's where they try to, they want to take first position when they lend you money. But I mean, there's really no way they can stop another institution from giving you capital, but there are those that won't give you capital if you got too many things out there. So we look at a host of things: new business, seasoned businesses. But building business credit can happen, seemingly overnight, depending on what's available to us. So good credit, the right history, 2 to 5 years of credit, no bankruptcies in the last 3 to 5 years, no foreclosures, no major derogatory, can put you in a good position. If you add someone on the business that's new to the business, and that business, and they have good credit, maybe you don't, you can leverage that person, and the debt will not show on their personal credit as long as you don't default, but it can be building your business credit, and you can have a contract between you and that person to say, okay, I'm getting my credit in order. I'm going to take you out of the situation in the next 24 months, 36 months, whatever your agreement is, or y'all can have an equity agreement, but that's building your credibility for your company, but also create something that's going to maintain your control in the company. So let's know, hey, you ain't going to just take my company from me after we built this credit. Right. I'm a contract person, black and white, everything on paper, So, but basically, if you want to go the long route, get your credit in order. If your credit's not good, start building your credit if your credit's not good. but you definitely want to go through all the tiers, good credit to bad credit, because you want to be able to say when they look at your profile, for the business that, okay, I got 15 different references, so that when you want to get a car through, let's say Ally, because that's typically who most people are going to go to for a vehicle. Through business, they're going to go through Ally. It's not going to have the most attractive rate, but it's going to be okay if your business credit history is good, and then kind of go from there, So, I mean, you want to get to where Dell will give you $30,000 in a line of credit for computers. Not that you're going to use it, but it's a line of credit that's available to you if you want to just get one computer, to say, okay, well, my line of credit is 30,000, just like on a personal, but I only use 1,500. You're low risk, and so treat the personal credit, the business credit, just like your personal credit, except that the only difference is that you can get 100 times as much credit because they're expecting you to deal with the public. You got to deal with supply and demand. So if your company takes off, you got to be able to handle, to service 100 people or 1,000 people or 10,000 people, whatever that, as you grow, so you look at it a little bit different, you're not minimized as you are on the personal side before they start asking for a host of documents, so yeah, that's what we got. But I mean, I don't want to just run away with the conversation. Are there any questions out there for me?
There are. Felicia says, how many inquiries are too many on your credit history and within what time frame?
Personal or business? Well, I can give you both. So a conservative bank doesn't really want to see more than 3 to 4. A community-based bank doesn't want to see more than 4 to 6. And that's still kind of high, but these days with COVID, it's really at the bank's discretion. And that's really based on your credit strength. So like if you have a weaker credit profile, you got 2 years of credit, you want to have really low inquiries, 2, 3. If you got 25 years of credit and they can see that you had credit since 1973 or whatever, 1983, and you got flawless history, you can withstand some of those bigger hits. Now, if you're talking through credit unions, there's some credit unions that, you have a little more latitude. Now, you won't get the 0% interest rate, but you'll get the cash back side of things. A lot of them have better cash advance rates than a lot of the traditional cash advance rates on a credit card. So I'll give you an example. I'm giving somebody a free plug, Navy Federal. I've got a credit card with them that's probably almost 80 grand, but the rate is 10.49, 11.49, and it's 12.49 on the cash advance on my card. Now, let's say I have a Discover card, cash advance might be 26.99 or 25.99. Now they'll give me a decent intro rate coming in, but the rate after the intro phase is passed might be 12, it might be 11, 13, whatever, but that cash advance rate is extremely high. Whereas if I go to Navy Federal, I can take 30% of my card. And if my card is, let's just say 25,000, I can borrow $7,500 and it's in my account in minutes. And I'm only going to pay 12.49 or 11.49, like 1% higher than the rate typically, that you have as your normal rate. So there's flexibility for you to use and get capital instantly to be able to do different things in that regard. So I just look at, like I said, I look at a variation of things depending on the person's credit profile and their credit strength. But yeah.
Okay. And you answered part of this question, but I'll read it. So Carlos says, what's the best way to leverage your account balances to build business credit? And also, do you advocate using smaller credit unions or larger banks for building lending relationships? And that second part, I feel like you answered that one.
Yeah. So if you got strong credit in a relationship, so let's say you got a few dollars and you're in Fifth Third. Wherever they have a footprint. So in a bank like that, if you got a few bucks and you let it sit there for a few months, I like Fifth Third for certain programs for line of credit purposes. They got high lines of credit. And I know how to get around certain documentation requests because of my relationships, right? So, or US Bank, they're a community-based lender. PNC has some good programs, but at their discretion, they can close your accounts. I mean, any bank can do that, but I mean, so different banks have different things. And so I just give you my experiences, personally. So I'm not saying it's going to be the way for everybody else, but so it just really depends on that credit strength. The weaker credit strength on get weaker situations, but strong credit profiles, personally, where you're PG and things, are going to do great things. Like, for example, I had a lady out of New York City. I recently took on for one of the American Express credit card for the business. Now. What I like about American Express, because I've got a few of them, is that they're gonna check everything. They're gonna give you a reference code to make sure that you actually apply because they're gonna talk to you. But the credit card for the business, intro got 2 of them. 25,000 one, and then basically another one with no preset limit. For the small business. Now that doesn't mean that you can't. It's unlimited, but it means that you could basically use up to $50,000, $100,000. You know, I mean, based on what they can approve, because you can get approval rating based on your credit history, and you can get them to give increases for the business in that regard, you know, seemingly overnight or the same day if your credit strength is there. So there's certain places that you can play with, you know, and get different things. But, you know, but in a bank like, let's say, Harris Bank, that's a more conservative bank. B of A is a more conservative bank with regards to certain things. But when you have a relationship with BMA for 5 or 10 years, you know, so it's really relationship, you know, and credit strength, the biggest thing, and then the inquiries, because what they hang their hat on is not just your personal credit score, it's that internal score, because that internal credit score, even with an 800 credit score, if there are certain things that they consider to be a risk, you're not getting, you know, because like a lot of banks want you to be a 207 or 210. Someone will take a 190 and approve you know, and people say, oh, I got 800 credit score. Yeah, that's great. But they have another score they're using, or they're using LexisNexis, or they're using CBC, or they're using Innovis. They're using FICO 4, FICO 8, FICO 9, different systems that they determine you're a qualified applicant, you know, whether it's personal or business, you know. So if you're personally guaranteeing something, you know, so I just look at the realistic expectations, because most of my clients that come to me want funding. They want cash. You know, I mean, there's some credit unions that I deal with that people have called me at midnight, Brandon, I need $100,000. I call this credit union at midnight, they get $100,000. I give you the exact language. You know, you need to create a relationship. You need to put this amount of money in the account, $100, $700, $1,500, whatever that number is. If you can do that, you know, you can get the money tonight. So it makes all the difference between, now it's personal, but it made all the difference for them to get that business started, to open that brick and mortar business. That's a business property they can refinance through a private lender and put if not all of it, most of the money back. Or they can get a 30-year mortgage and take a lot of that money out, and that can become their money to their seed capital to start the business, to pay for inventory, to pay for marketing, to do payroll, you know, to do any fix-ups or any customized painting or whatever they want to do, and then to market, you know. So there's a million ways in, you know, but I tell people, you know, it depends on what you want to do, what you want to pay for it. So I have different courses that we offer, $3,500 to $75,000, depending on your budget. You know, I tell people, once you get started with me, I'm real hands-on. So I'm a nice person, but but in this process, I'm not paid to be nice and not mean, but I need to make sure that you stay on it, because you're 100% responsible for you. Your business needs to, your business is only going to open and close with you, based on what you do. So I'm going to give you all the nuggets in the world. I'm going to give you all the resources in the world to get you positioned. But it's my goal to get you there. Like, I enjoy it. It's not just for money at this point for me. It's more like, wow, this person was making $40,000 last year, and now they're making $350 in this year. And it happened, use a little bit of real estate and a little bit to get them something that they could actually call their own, to say that these four walls, I own this. I have a tool for my business and I own it debt free, and it's commercial. Or I bought this piece of property I talked to the alderman because I had the money to renovate. They gave it to me for $1, but my renovation cost me $80,000. Well, I had $80,000 to renovate. And what does that do? It gets properties back on the tax roll, but it's still a corporate debt, and it gives you an asset that you bought for a lower number with instant equity. So it really depends on what we sit and stand with things. So we can leverage personal to leverage the business, in some aspects, or if someone has the strength to do both, or just one alone, then we do that. But I look at a person, and then I kind of say, okay, well, these are the options that we have based on what we can offer. You tell me what's a go and what's a no.
All right, we've got one final question, and then we want you to give your contact information for anyone to get a hold of you. So Alicia says, how do you move your personal assets into the business account to make it look attractive without causing your account to get flagged? She said, would that cause an issue with commingling your personal accounts and your business account?
So what I do, I draft the contract. I'm glad you asked. I love that question. Finally. Okay. So this is where people get in trouble, they have non-for-profits and for-profits. Commingling is a big one. I'm big on tax code. So you can draft the contract between yourself and your business. The terms that you have with the bank are still going to be the terms of the bank. So I'm going to give you an example. So every year I loan myself $100,000. Every year. I give myself a balloon loan for 100 years. I pay $1 per year. And at the end of that 100 years, I owe the balance of that loan. Now, you can't get in trouble with that because it's a contract. Your payment to the bank is still your responsibility. But me loaning my business and my business arrangement with them, I didn't commingle, because I got a contract here saying, okay, well, they're gonna pay me $1 per year. So I'm gonna give the post office. A lot of those are long leases, they buy them for $1, or not buy them, they rent them for $1, or they rent them for X amount of dollars for 20 years. They get different discounts. But personally for me, I give myself balloon payments for 100 years. Because as long as that contract is legal, I can leverage that. You know, so I didn't commingle about it. I personally loaned a business that I own some money. And my deal with them is they give me $1 for a year. They owe me this amount of money after 100 years. Now, I may not live that long, but that's my contract. I do that purposely to surpass, you know, everything. But in the interim, you can create systems that will pay it off sooner if you decide to. And so there's no prepayment penalty if I decide to pay it off earlier. It's just saying, hey, I'm gonna pay $1 per year for the next 100 years. And at the end of that 100 years, I owe whatever that number is that I decide to charge myself. Because it's not illegal for you to loan money to yourself to start a business. And people get that confused. You know, it's just about putting it on paper, you know, and so that way, you know, I go the extra mile, not to sound funny, but because of this, you know, I make sure that I'm covering my tail. So I'm emailing to myself, I'm notarizing it, I'm putting it on a flash drive, and it's when I mail it to myself, it's never open, and then I put it in my safe. You know, so it's just putting it on paper, because a lot of non-for-profits wouldn't get in trouble if they just put it on paper. You know, so, and even for-profits, but non-for-profits specifically, because there's a higher standard held on them because of, you know, non-for-profit doesn't mean that you don't profit. It just means you need to account for where every dollar went. You know, it's not a personal gain in that situation, but yeah, it's, you know, so I take the same approach on personal. Everything's a contract. If I loan money to my brother for my business, it's a contract. Yeah, I would like my money back in this time frame at this interest rate. So same personal. I mean, your business, you know, but that's a very good question, because people, that's a question I don't hear too often, but when I'm doing presentations and seminars and webinars, it's something that I go into, you know, and you got to spend time with yourself for your business, you know, think about things every day. Like I started a fragrance business, you know, I mean, I have one of my partners here right now. I started this fragrance business, you know, I sold 6,100 bottles in 11 days, you know, at $10. Now, granted, it's just something I've been doing for a long time, but I created another business. And guess what? If I want to loan some money from this business to another business, I can have a B2B contract. You know, so and then I can build that brand, and I can do another 100-year loan. So that, and I can offset it by giving a cashier's check, a wire, or whatever, something that give me a paper trail, so it's documented. And that's really all. It's just, you just want to document and cover your tail that way. You know, that's really all it is. You know, so I would say do a contract. Don't be afraid to write a contract between you and yourself, your businesses, because I mean that's necessary. You know, to not get in trouble with, you know, violate tax code, to get in trouble. You know, and I talk about that because I had a bad business deal that cost me millions. I'll just put you that way. Many years ago, because of my partner commingled. So I'm an extremist for watching it. And I tell people, I mean, this is gonna sound crazy, but every morning on your personal, if you're a business owner, watch your personal account and your business account. I am so anal with the banks. If it's 1 penny short, I'm calling. Why is it a penny short? I know it sounds crazy, but to take a penny from a million people, it adds up. You know, they already getting bank fees, they already getting NSF fees, you know, so make sure that you know, watch your money, because banks are notorious for moving money, you're not knowing it. You know, so you have to become a really good steward over your finances too, you know. But yeah, that's what I got for you. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No apologies, brother. You are a wealth of knowledge. I tell you, you are a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much for blessing us with all of this information. So how can the community members get a hold of you if they're interested?
Well, they could, on Facebook, I'm Brandon Mr. Finance, or they could call me direct, you know, at 812-244-3609. Again, that's 812-244-3609, or they can go to BrandonMrFinance.com. They can book appointments with me online based on their availability, and, you know, 15 minutes, half an hour, you know, in person, or, you know, via telephone. Yep.
All right, very good, very good. One final question, and then we will let you go for the evening. Do you go through a lawyer to create the contracts, or do you just write something simple?
You know, I draft something simple, to be honest with you. You know, I mean, because they're all, you can go to Law Depot, you can go to all kind of places and create legal contracts with legal language. You know, it costs you $30 for the year. You know, but it prints out, you know, so amortization schedules, whatever you decide, you know, based on your customary desires. So I do it that way, you know. So typically it's designed by Legal Eagles already, but I have it in place, you know, got it from this site, and it gives you a downloadable, you know, PDF document, and it's ready to go.
Yeah, right. Only if you're going to sue yourself does it become a problem with something like that.
Exactly. Right. Well, thank you, guys. Cherie, did you have anything final to say?
No, I just wanted to thank Brandon for being here tonight with us, and, you know, definitely start off with your goals with regards to this whole process. I do have actually one piece of advice for people, and that is when I've gotten burned with taking out loans, especially for new businesses, it's because I did it with businesses that I wasn't really familiar with. And I didn't partner with someone who was familiar with that, like had proven um, skills in that specific industry. So as Brandon was talking about, building business credit and, for example, getting $100,000 to open up a brick and mortar and things like that. And Brandon, you can let me know what you think about this as well. I'm just always cautious when I'm talking to brand new entrepreneurs who've never owned a business before, never worked in a specific industry before, never had to deal with the budget within that specific industry, to just say it's okay to move slowly if you haven't, if you are inexperienced in that industry. So go ahead, Brandon.
No, you're good. I agree.
Yeah, that would be my biggest piece of advice for people, but this is a way for you to accelerate your family bank, your family wealth faster, is by understanding business credit and actually working on it, building it, and leveraging it, because that's what the wealthy do. Yeah. They leverage credit in the right way. And I think that we are able to do that as well. So, all righty then. Thank you so much, Brandon. Thank you, Tawana. And we'll see everybody in an hour at 8
hopefully
o'clock.
We'll see everyone in an hour for our bet on Black Pitch this week. So.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody.